So to prove my point that you don't need to palm a basketball to dunk and that it's not even that helpful, here's an example of me trying to dunk with my regular method, which is just pushing the ball and then actually palming the ball. Here I am palming the ball going into the motion, and before I even get to jump, I lose it. So I go to try it again, and as you can see here, I am able to palm the ball. This is a really grippy ball, so it's an easy one even for me to palm. But no matter how hard I palm it, I'm just not going to be able to do it enough so to counter like the jarring motion that's going to happen from a gather or an actual jump. Then I try the regular motion again right afterwards, and of course I get it because pushing the ball is at the end of the day what's going to get it to stick in your hand. This part right here is the key. As you can see, I'm pushing it with my offhand. Once I figured out the technique, I've had no issues dunking with one hand. I can do it really easily now, obviously. It's just that I got the windmill first because I hadn't learned that yet. Another example of how this motion works is here's me with a closed fist. The ball even falls out of my hand before I go for the jump, but still, once I actually jump up, I'm able to keep it in my hand. Centripetal force. If your hand size was comparable to that of an NBA player, like a big man, then probably, yeah, it would help you quite a bit because you'd be able to pick it up like a kid's basketball. But in this example here, this is a good one because once they show the replay, you realize that LeBron actually isn't even able to hold on to the ball, and we know how easily he can palm it. I mean, he can just stand there and hold it basically after a catch. It falls out of his hand completely here, but because he used his offhand to push it, it's able to stick in there because it's moving. When I think of NBA players with big hands, I think of Kawhi Leonard, and even in this example here, he does have to use his offhand to push it. Once you start to look for it, you'll now notice it every single time an NBA player does a dunk. Off one, it's a little bit different. The way Kawhi Leonard does it here is by having his hand under the ball, but his palm facing him, and then he turns his palm away from him once he starts to go up for the dunk. That way, we're moving the ball by turning it over, and therefore it's going to want to go where we put it. So to summarize things here, it definitely would make a difference if you had hands that were the size of like Boban's, where you're holding basically a kid's basketball. You don't even need a second hand to push the ball in. So at the end of the day, even with people who have NBA player-sized hands, you're mostly just going to be using your offhand to push the ball in your hand rather than actually palming it. Nobody's going to have the grip strength to be able to actually hold on to the ball in order to survive a jump. The force produced by even a gather, and especially a jump, is just too much, and it would jar the ball loose if you were trying to just truly palm it. So no, you don't need to be able to palm a basketball in order to dunk. Pretty far from it, actually. You can get away with really small hands. I know for me personally, before I had that big jump in my vert, that when I would try to dunk it with one hand, I thought, oh, I just don't have big enough hands, I can't palm it, that's why I'm missing. But your body has this reaction when it realizes it's not high enough to actually dunk it, so it just lets go of the ball, giving the illusion that bigger hands would solve the problem. This should be very good news for those who are trying to dunk though, because this is something you can learn on your driveway with an adjustable rim. All you have to do is practice turning the ball over, get used to what works for you. There's a few different ways to do it, but at the end of the day, no, you don't need to palm a basketball to dunk.